Good day, everyone. I am so excited to be here with you virtually. My name is Amanda Hernkind, and on behalf of the Hospice of St. Francis team, I am here to wish you a warm and remembering and honorable Memorial Day. We are here at the Veterans Memorial Museum on Merritt Island, and we are going to have a brief episode for you with some definition and reflection on what Memorial Day means to those of us living here in the United States of America, and more importantly, how we can honor and remember those who have served this great nation and given us the gift of our freedoms. It is with great pride and rejoicing that I represent Hospice of St. Francis and the resources we provide to the veterans and their families that we serve at end of life, as well as prior to some of those later stages in life, with pre-planning, resource connection, just general gratitude and appreciation to recognize the service and the sacrifice made by these amazing men and women and the heroes of America's nation.
Hello, my name is Todd Weaver with the Brevard Veterans Memorial Center, an Army veteran, a volunteer, a Gold Star father. Our youngest son, Todd William Weaver, was killed in combat in Afghanistan in 2010. We know what Memorial Day is all about, and we hope that through this chance to visit with us here at the Veterans Memorial Center and our Veterans Museum, no matter where you are right now, you'll feel a part of that veteran community and you'll understand even more about Memorial Day. Let me tell you a little bit about the Veterans Memorial Center. We're located right behind the Merritt Square Mall on Merritt Island. Our museum, starting June 1st, by the way, is open every day of the week, and we hope that if you have a chance or your family has a chance to come and visit if you haven't done so. We have 500 members of the Veterans Memorial Center, and we represent the 72,000 veterans that live in Brevard County. Brevard County is the second highest county in the country in percentage of veterans to the population. So it's a wonderful place to be a veteran, and it's a wonderful place to get support. As we'll talk about here, we have $1.5 million from the state for a brand new museum in 2016. We have $3 million from the county and the Tourist Development Corporation for developing a Veterans Memorial Park to include later a bandstand for special ceremonies and performances. And we have a wonderful library and just a great place for Americans to understand what veterans have done, for the youth to understand about American veterans, and for every veteran to have another home when they have a chance to visit. I want to tell you and talk a little bit about Memorial Day and why we have a Memorial Day. It wasn't until the Civil War that we actually recognized, with those tremendous losses, that the numbers of people had to be honored separately. They called it Commemoration Day. As you might imagine, it was done first by the winning Union side. But as our history developed, we became more intent on recognizing through monuments, through memorials, through buildings, through very special events, the sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice that American veterans have made. I want you to understand that 1.2 million Americans have laid down their lives in armed conflicts in this country since the Revolutionary War to create the best country in the history of the world. We also want to remember the millions and millions of other veterans who came to the fight, who would have done the same thing, who did write the blank check made out to the United States, up to and including their lives. So though we remember the fallen today, Memorial Day, and we focus in Veterans Day, November 11th, we focus more on all veterans. But today, Memorial Day, this year, the 25th of May, let's remember those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our country as a result of their military service, where they chose country beyond self, sacrifice beyond comfort, and the willingness to fight for their battle buddy, for their families, for their country, and for their faith. America is blessed to have so many veterans who are willing to do just all of that. That's why we have a free country today, because they went out and fought. Memorial Day shifted over the years, especially after World War I. Ceremonies were held, by the way, after the pandemic, which was then the Spanish flu killed over 600,000 Americans, many of whom were service members coming back from war and died of the Spanish flu. So we have to remember our place in history is important, but many have sacrificed much more than we have. After World War II, it became known as Memorial Day by an act of Congress, and by the 1970s, Memorial Day was designated to be the last Monday in May, so that it would be part of those 3-day weekend packages. Some may argue, well, that's another picnic day for Americans. But if we as veterans remind our families, remind other Americans that it's not just that. For at least an hour out of that day, we hope most Americans pause, reflect, visit a cemetery, visit a Memorial Day ceremony in more normal times, and really understand what Memorial Day is all about. So again, it's my delight to have a chance to talk to you today. Let's learn a little bit more about what Memorial Day is all about. Today, as we think about Memorial Day, I wanted to share with you a very personal story. We were blessed, my wife Jeannie and I, with 4 wonderful kids, 2 boys and 2 girls, the youngest of whom, Todd Weaver, dropped out of a perfectly good college to fight for his country in Iraq, in the Iraqi liberation operation. He returned and graduated from college and was commissioned in the Army and married in 1 week in May 2008. And by the time he went to his second war in Afghanistan, he was a first lieutenant and a father with a 1-year-old baby. He fell in combat on September the 9th, 2010, and was buried with over 300 people attending at the Arlington National Cemetery. As a Gold Star family, we are touched by how so many Americans now have separated the soldier and the service that they did from any politics. A soldier never joins hoping to go to war, but a soldier joins because they believe in something beyond self, and they believe in their country, their families, all the things that contribute now, especially since 1983, when nobody has joined our military without being a volunteer. That is an important distinction. No other country in the world comes close to that quality and numbers of people who join without being forced to join. The United States of America thus has a responsibility, as you are doing right now in watching this, to honor all the fallen in America who have given the ultimate sacrifice, their lives, to make our country great. Right now, we've moved over to the World War II section of our museum. Some of you, either yourselves or your dads, mothers, served in World War II. We're very proud of this section. We have a lot of actual artifacts on this level that were actually there during the war, during the conflict, and have been donated by many people. If you look, you see we don't ignore the enemy, and we've actually been told by German tourists that they've seen more information about the Nazi Germany here in our museum than they can see in their own country. No history should be hidden. We should understand all of the history. That's why we have a Confederate flag. We have the Civil War items, because that was history. If you keep moving forward past the Japanese display, let's go over to the right and you'll see Korea. It was only 5 years later, June of 1950, when the North Korea invaded South Korea, where we had a few troops left. Within a few weeks, our troops were forced back to a tiny place on that peninsula in danger of losing South Korea. We'd already had problems with communists, obviously, in Berlin in 1948, and now we're dealing with the communists of China, North Korea, and the Soviets in the Far East. But America and the United Nations, for the first time, came to defense in Korea. Many people call it the Forgotten War. Some of you served in Korea. It's the Middle Kingdom, a very crucial place strategically in East Asia, and it is a war that will be remembered as probably the first war we deliberately fought of many since then, where we won the objective. We didn't fully win the war and defeat the enemy, in this case North Korea and China. As I mentioned earlier, 33,694 Americans fell in combat in Korea. during 2 years. Korea is not in a state of peace. Korea has an armistice sign, a cessation of hostilities. That's why many Americans still go to Korea every year, and I spend a year on the demilitarized zone in Korea, blocking those guys from coming south again. One of the things America should be very proud of, but it often forgets, because of our fight in Korea, Korea is the 6th ranking economy, South Korea, in the entire world now. Cars and ships and all kinds of things are made in South Korea. There is a very close connection between South Korea and the United States because we gave them not just their independence, but their economic freedom, and they've taken full advantage of. On the other end of the scale, probably the first, second, or third worst economy, worst culture, worst group of people in the world are right their neighbors to the north, the North Korea, the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea. We have a small display here for the Cold War. A lot of Americans forget we weren't at war. We didn't lose a lot of people, although some fell in sensitive secret operations. But in the Cold War, from 1945 until 1991, we had serious adversaries with the Soviet Union, with China, with Cuba, with North Korea. These adversaries, many of them had nuclear weapons and could have launched them against the United States. So those men and women of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Marines, all who served intense times, and they deserve reflection on this day as well. As we shift to the right here, you'll see those of you who served in Vietnam will recognize this uniform as an irregular North Vietnamese army, and sometimes Viet Cong will get that quality of uniform. Our enemy in Vietnam was first the Viet Cong and then the actual North Vietnamese Army, the NVA, but in reality they were fully supported by Soviet and Chinese weapons and money and payrolls. China paid their families if the soldiers fell. So it was really a proxy war fought by the Russians. The Russians were learned later in Afghanistan, where they lost 33,000 troops, that is a very challenging war indeed, and they were defeated in Afghanistan. Our war in Vietnam ended in a stalemate in 1972, but the South Vietnamese government and army was unable to hold. So in April of 1975, Saigon fell, and now Vietnam is its own country under communist rule, but has become kind of an economic mini miracle, and many Americans go there for holidays all the time. So our sacrifice there, people will criticize that war and split our country in half, but our sacrifice there cannot be forgotten and did have some positive impact.
Hospice of St. Francis is a proud 5-star partner in the We Honor Veterans program. We achieved this level of partnership just this past March of 2020. It is a way to recognize that we have obtained the resources and provide the necessary tools to our veteran clients to ensure the best possible care and the best ability to access resources and help come to terms with some of those needs that we recognize here recently with the late effects of PTSD or exposures that men and women may have had during combat that now down the road have affected how they're able to live their daily lives. We have some beautiful partnerships here with many of the local community veterans resource networks. There's so many that we are just so proud to work in partnership with to make sure that we don't duplicate resources, but rather multiply resources that we can share with our veteran clients and their families.